You're looking at the first New York Giants squad in 21 years that has a chance to win a division title. No kidding. With a quarter of the '84 season still to play, the Giants have a good chance to win the NFC East based on their record within the division and remaining schedule. This season has been more substance than shadow, thanks to the solid efforts of quarterback Phil Simms, who has made the New York passing game one of the most productive in football. He's thrown for 18 touchdowns already, the most by any Giants quarterback in 15 years. But he'll be sorely tested today by a team that boasts one of the finest pass rushes in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs can only be spoilers now with their 5-7 record, but they are champions when it comes to sacking the quarterback. The men from Missouri have already piled up 45 sacks, second most in the AFC, and will be a hard-charging crew today as they try to wreck New York's title dreams. From the Meadowlands, it's a game the home team must win to stay in the playoff picture. The host New York Giants versus the mischief-minded Kansas City Chiefs on the NFL Game of the Week. Even in their losing seasons, the Lawrence Taylor-led Giant defense has been an imposing force. And in the game's early moments, LT and company were all over Chiefs quarterback Bill Kenny. The Chiefs were unable to score for nearly 19 minutes as the Giants stopped Kansas City in all phases of their offensive game plan. Every time Kenny looked up, the results were unpleasant, but he had plenty of company. Phil Simms found the Chief defense equally as tough as the Giants, too, were held in check. Number 26, running back Rob Carpenter, found some creases of daylight on one drive, but that was soon snuffed out when the Chiefs' vaunted pass rush handed out its well-known calling card. After Art Still picked up a sack, Simms began to have more trouble, including some missed connections with open receivers. Then the threat of interception reared its nasty head as the Giants narrowly missed giving the ball away. Lloyd Burris dropped this potential theft, but the Giants weren't so fortunate on their next drive, when Simms was victimized by a New Jersey native who now earns his living as the Chiefs' leading interceptor. Number 20, Deron Cherry, who played college football in this very stadium for Rutgers, swiped his 6th pass of the year, and it proved to be the spark Kansas City needed to get their offense on track. A juggling catch by Carlos Carson, number 88, put the Chiefs on the Giants' doorstep. The 56-yarder clicked because Carson flat-out beat defender Perry Williams, then showed his hands were as nimble as his feet. But near the goal line, New York got very nasty, stopping 3 straight attempts by Kansas City to go in for the score. So on 4th and 1, the Chiefs figured they'd settle for a sure 3 points on a field goal attempt. But that, too, went by the board. Lawrence Taylor dropped holder Jim Arnold, and the game remained a scoreless tie as period 2 began. The Giant defense had held, as it has done so many times in the recent past. But with the offense sputtering, the defense seemed to be spending a lot of time on the field. Finally, the wear and tear began to show. Bill Kenny began completing passes, short but effective little darts that moved the ball downfield. And New York had to come up to defend these quick plays. Then with the Giants drawn in, Kenny went deep and got the game's first score. Number 83, wide receiver Stephon Page hauled in his third touchdown catch of the year on perhaps Kansas City's greatest catch of the year. Fighting two defenders, Page leaped, then literally stole the ball away from safety Kenny Hill, number 48. Kansas City had a 7-0 lead thanks to its passing game, but knew that New York's aerial assault was quite capable of getting the touchdown right back. Phil Simms shook off his rocky first quarter performance and put together a tidy little drive that featured 4 completions, each for substantial yardage. Number 20, running back Joe Morris was instrumental on the drive, making several key plays, including one catch that put the Giants within easy reach of the end zone. From the 1, Rob Carpenter plowed through a quagmire of bodies to tie the game at 7. And then things looked even rosier for New York when the Chiefs turned the ball over on their very next possession. Strong safety Bill Courier, number 29, stole a Kenny pass, and the Giants finally looked like they were ready to break the game open. But the interception bug was spreading in epidemic proportions as Simms immediately gave the ball back to the Chiefs and cornerback Kevin Ross, number 31. The Ross pickoff gave the Chiefs excellent field position, so it didn't take much for Kenny to get the ball into scoring range. Although Kansas City would not get the touchdown they desired, the final location was well within the kicking capabilities of field goal specialist Nick Lowry. The Chiefs' lead of 10-7 would soon grow even larger as Simms promptly served up his third interception of the half. This time, the culprit was number 29, cornerback Albert Lewis. Kenny quickly struck for his second touchdown pass of the half, firing to tight end Willie Scott. The contrast between the Kansas City quarterback and New York's Phil Simms was never more acute than at this point. The Chiefs led 17-7 as the halftime gun sounded. Kenny was hot, Simms was not. But in the final 30 minutes, the fortunes of both men would change radically, and a thrilling conclusion would result. The Chiefs were celebrating now, but before the day was over, the Giants would pull off one of the greatest comebacks in recent franchise history. As the second half began, it was apparent that the Giants' chances of staying in first place in the NFC East were slipping away as fast as some of Phil Simms' errant passes. So it was no surprise that they came out running on their first third-quarter possession. With Rob Carpenter displaying his playoff form of 1981, the Giants moved from their own 20 to just inside Kansas City territory in 3 plays. And from there, Phil Simms felt it was safe to take to the air once more. For a moment, it seemed like the specter of the Giants' turnover-filled first half was going to keep haunting them. But a generous ruling by the referees in the Giants' favor kept New York's drive alive at the Kansas City 29. Simms wasted little time taking advantage of the Giants' sudden turn of good fortune as he moved the ball down to the Chiefs' 1-yard line with this perfect pitch to fullback Tony Galbraith, number 30. Three plays later, Rob Carpenter capped this scoring drive by plunging into the end zone for his second touchdown of the day. On this drive that opened the second half, the Giants went 80 yards in 13 plays, consuming the first 6.5 minutes of the third quarter. So it was a well-rested and hungry Giant defense that greeted the Chiefs' Bill Kenny the first time the Kansas City quarterback managed to touch the ball in the second half. Luckily for the Chiefs, this play was simply ruled a sack for Carl Banks and not a score. But it aroused the Giant defense, who, led by the familiar number 56 at linebacker Lawrence Taylor, started to make their presence felt. Halftime is usually a time for adjustments, and it was obvious that the Giants had spent most of their locker room rest studying their first half mistakes. For while the defense was holding Kansas City to just 38 third-quarter yards, Phil Simms was suddenly picking apart the Chiefs' secondary. Late in the third quarter, it appeared that the Giants were again driving for a score. But as it so often happens in this game of measured yards, the mere matter of a few inches can make you or break you. Lionel Manuel's diving fingertip grab was ruled incomplete when the officials decided that he was indeed a few inches out of bounds. Then in the final seconds of the period, the Giants faced a fourth and less than a yard at the Chiefs' 31. The Brain Trust decided to eschew a possible game-tying field goal and go for it all. It was a decision whose outcome would indeed be measured by inches. Zeke Moat's partisan prodding did little to alter the mathematics of this measurement. Tony Galbraith's plunge fell 4 inches short, and with the Kansas City defense making a heroic stance to snuff out a possible Giant scoring drive, the momentum of the game drastically switched gears. This Bill Kenny sideline out to Carlos Carson set up an early Nick Lowry fourth-quarter field goal. Then on Kansas City's next possession, Kenny needed only 5 plays to accomplish what he could not do at all in the entire third quarter. Carlos Carson's perfectly run 34-yard post pattern resulted in Kenny's third touchdown toss of the game and lifted the Chiefs into a very comfortable 27-14 lead. A second look at this play that stunned the Giants showed how the Chiefs clearly anticipated a blitz from number 56 Lawrence Taylor and purposely put a tackle and not a running back in LT's path. The successful blocking ploy gave Carson just the time he needed to slip behind the Giants secondary for an easy 6 points. Despite being outplayed and outmuscled for most of the second half, the Chiefs had somehow extended their lead to 13 points. The frustrated Giants had plenty of room for thought, but precious little time to do it in, where they faced the formidable task of having to put more points on the board in the game's last 10 minutes than they could in the previous 50. If there has been a reason for the Giants' turnaround this season, it has been the coming of age of Phil Simms. But with a mobile quarterback spending much of his time on the seat of his pants, New York's lofty playoff hopes seem very much in danger of being grounded. This was a game that the Giants were expected to win, but it has been 20 years of failure and such great expectations that have led to the long-suffering plight of being a Giant fan. But there is a character and resiliency on this particular Giant team that is of a far different nature than its 20 predecessors. It is a quality of courage that began to surface when the Giants took over the football 90 yards away from the goal line with just 9 minutes to play. And if there were any doubts about whether Phil Simms had indeed come of age, they would soon be laid to rest. With the seconds ticking away, Simms engineered a Giant drive that was as economical in time as it was hard-fought in its effort. In a matter of 1 minute and 48 seconds, Simms moved the Giants 90 yards in 5 plays, capping off a brilliant scoring drive with this 22-yard touchdown pass to wide receiver Bob Johnson, number 88. Johnson's clutch grab came on a timing pattern, and it was a right combination of a perfectly thrown Phil Simms pass and a bit of second effort on the part of the sure-fingered rookie receiver. New York was now back within easy striking distance, and when Kansas City failed to move the ball on their ensuing possession, Phil Simms was set to do his quick strike act once more. Starting this time from his 20, the sleek-footed Simms managed to avoid the grass with the Chiefs' strong-limbed Dave Lindstrom long enough to hit Lionel Manuel at the Kansas City 37. Simms then displayed the kind of all-around ability that had so many scouts comparing him to Terry Bradshaw when the Morehead State alumnus was drafted #1 by New York in 1979. Like Bradshaw, Simms possesses the skill to run the ball if necessary. And like the former Steelers star who was never afraid to challenge defenses, Simms has that confident knack of threading a needle with every pass he throws. This gutsy 31-yard strike to tight end Zeke Moab was an example of just that. And it set the Giants up perfectly for the chance to go ahead with a little under 3 minutes to play. It was a cool and patient Simms who waited for the right moment to hit wide open Zeke Moab for the winning touchdown. It was Moab's 7th catch of the game, and the second-year tight end accounted for 126 of Simms' 343 yards passing. More importantly, though, was the fact that New York had come from behind for the second week in a row, and that had Giant fans staggered with an excitement they have not felt in many a year. With 2 minutes remaining, the Chiefs still had time to move into field goal range. But it was a fired-up Giant defense that made sure that Kansas City would not stand a chance of pulling this game out. The Giants' recovery of Theodis Brown's fumble sealed New York's dramatic 28-27 victory. With their win, the Giants improved their record to 8-5, thus ensuring them of only their second 500 or over season in the last 11 years. From the character of their comeback victory over the Chiefs, though, it is clear that this Giants team is not going to settle for just a 500 record. They share the lead in the NFC East with both Dallas and Washington. By virtue of owning the best record in the division, combined with a favorable schedule over the last 3 weeks, there is reason to believe that these Giants might be destined to deliver their fans a division crown in 1984.